we thought we would break down and debunk marriage myths. And we got 5 of them.
The myth is essentially, if you just marry someone godly, your marriage will work out. And unfortunately, I think we've seen that not to be true.
If you make a routine out of not doing things together, I think you will lose the romance in the marriage or in the relationships.
Number 3, you have to like each other's friends. I feel like our generation really struggles to find joy in the mundane. We're always looking for the next exciting thing, the next exciting person.
Marriage is going to fix all my issues. What if your spouse is like, I can't stand your toxic friend?
Oh, that's tough. Welcome back to Happy and Healthy, everybody. I am your host, Jeanine Amapola Ward, and I am joined today with Mr. Kaleb Ward.
This is a cozy podcast.
It is a cozy podcast.
I can't tell if we're like too close to each other, but it's kind of, it's like an intimate vibe.
We are squished.
I might randomly just kiss you.
Really? No, not on the camera.
We're so close to each other.
No, it's good. We're on a cozy little chair in my office. We have our fall background going. We decided to coordinate. We're both wearing red.
And it's finally like 60 degrees outside, so this just makes sense.
It all makes sense, you guys. Literally, Dallas decided to change its mind this week. He was like, you know what? We're done with summer. Boom, fall.
Dude,
here for
fall,
it.
Cold weather is just better for all marriages out there. There's a lot of myths in marriage, and that's not one of them. Like, marriage is better, and I don't care what anyone says. This is a black and white issue.
Okay.
When it's too hot for too much time, like I don't know how people do it in like Arizona and Las Vegas or Dubai. It's like, you need to be able to be like cozied up.
Oh, yeah.
Cuddling. You know, you got a warm drink. It's 40, 50 degrees outside. You know, you got some chili in the pot. You got some apple cider.
You're making me hungry.
I just like, I feel like that just brings marriages together. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. That's kind of why I really struggled living in LA, was because there weren't seasons. I need seasons. I need the crispiness in the air. And we went to this cute little pumpkin patch yesterday. It was so fun. And I think that was just good for our marriage, a little date night.
Yeah. And speaking of marriage.
Oh, yeah.
Because we've never talked about it enough.
Never. We never talk about marriage, relationship.
We've never talked about dating ever.
This is our first time ever talking about it.
So because we've never talked about it, we thought we would talk about it again. Or talk about it for the first time.
Yeah, we want to be very vulnerable and share for the first time ever.
You know, we're experts. We're almost a year in, a few weeks.
That's
true. Because we're experts and because we've never talked about dating, we thought we would break down and debunk marriage myths.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people out there who aren't married, who are scared of marriage, or they're not scared and they just know that marriage is going to come with XYZ. There's also a lot of people out there who are already married and you are kind of like already sabotaging maybe your marriage because you think, you know, these are issues, when in reality, a lot of marriages either go through this or you can work through some of these myths. And we got 5 of them, and I think we're going to go through these 5.
Yeah, we have 5, and we'd love to hear what you guys think. Like, if there's any that we missed or maybe more that you have. Maybe we'll add a 6 if we poll the audience. But we want to debunk marriage myths. So we're going to get into this today. Maybe you're dating or you are single and you have like an idea of what you think marriage is going to be like. Like I said, we're almost a year in and we're able to kind of debunk these now.
Yeah.
So,
well, the first one,
let's get into it.
I'm not wearing my wedding ring. Can I talk about marriage if I don't have my ring on?
Absolutely not. I think that's a fallacy. Isn't that what they say in law school or something?
Yeah. So something before we get into these, my ring is too small. So I take it off all the time and I lose it maybe once a week. And so I need a new ring so I don't take it off every second. So currently I can't find it. Also, guys, we are going to finish this conversation on marriage myths on our Patreon. So we're going to do a few more on our Patreon. So if you get to the end and you're like, I want to keep watching,
I want to hear more,
go subscribe to our Patreon. It's only $7.99 a month.
Yep. One extra podcast a month.
Yeah. So
go check that out. What's number 1, babe? Kick us off. We made a list.
And also, we're going to debunk these, but if some of these are true, maybe. So if you agree with them, then that's also okay. But I also think we picked 5 where I think the world might view these as like red flags, or they might view these as issues when we are like, no, that's just like you can work through that in marriage.
Yeah, these are kind of just like common myths that we think marriage has.
Yeah.
Also, get yourself a cup of coffee.
The first one, and this is a good one, you need to have everything in common.
Oh, you know what? I remember thinking this growing up until JP, Jonathan Pekluda, debunked this. And I remember him always using his analogy or his story. Monica likes cruises. I like sports games. Like if we married on the basis of only having a commonality, or maybe he said they originally both like cruises. And as they got older, she started to hate cruises. So what would happen if you got married and now you're 10 years in and all of a sudden you're like, oh, you don't like cruises? Our marriage is falling apart.
Yeah.
I don't think you need to have the exact same commonalities of interest, but it does definitely help your relationship.
Yeah. I remember it definitely helps. I think you should have maybe a couple. But for instance, both of you and I did not run really that much until we got married. I was not a marathon runner when we were dating.
I would casually run.
Yeah.
I would never call myself a runner.
But like in marriage, you get to build your own like hobbies together. You build things that, and you build commonalities within, the things that you like to do. But yeah, you're right. It does change. I look at so many things that we bonded over in dating that we don't do anymore. Like you and I, we haven't played pickleball together in a while.
Easily over 3-4 months.
And we used to go to town on pickleball.
Right.
But I think it's important that where I don't think it's a totally like red flag if you don't have things in common. I do think if you guys both have the heart posture of you guys are both okay with trying new things and being open-minded, that's okay.
Again, marriage is about having sacrifice and laying your life down for your partner. And so we're going to use my sister as an example. She loves to hike. She loves nature. My brother-in-law doesn't really care much about it. But because he loves her, he will go and do that for her.
He literally told me over dinner, he said, dude, there's nothing I would rather not do than walk up a hill and look at a sunset. He's like, when I walk up a hill or a mountain or whatever, it literally does nothing for me.
Yeah.
And for her, it's like heaven.
She loves it. Yeah. But he's obsessed with frisbee, what's it called?
Disc golf.
Disc golf. And so to bless him, she'll go with him. But then occasionally she'll go with her friends and he'll play with his friends. So again, it's play.
You can't say another man's playing with his friends.
Oh, he's playing the game with his friends.
He's hanging around. They're
playing a game, baby.
When you start saying a man's playing, it just sounds weird.
Oh my gosh, you guys know what I mean.
I gotta defend my boy.
But basically what we're trying to say here is it's okay to have some commonalities, but also you're going to have differences because not everybody likes the same things. Caleb and I don't like all the same music. I also like more classical music. I like more artsy things. Caleb is more of a sports guy. So if I didn't marry you just because you didn't like to play piano and sing with me, that'd be crazy.
What are some things we disagree on totally with our hobbies?
Well, you go golfing for 6 hours and I don't golf at all.
But I might golf twice a month. Maybe.
Yeah, and it doesn't really bother me. I don't really think we disagree that much.
I would say we mostly agree, but I would say, now I'm thinking about it.
I just think the main thing is you give your partner freedom to do the things that they like to do. Because say you don't enjoy pumpkin painting.
A lot of girls hate sports too.
They don't like sports or the guy doesn't want to do a wine painting class. Let your girl get her girlfriends to go and let your guy go watch the game with his guys. But find what does bond you guys together. So,
I think it's okay to, go splitsies and one partner go this way. But I do think if you make a routine out of not doing things together, I think you will lose the romance in the marriage or in the relationship. So it's important for me to go and do the things. Like last night, we went to a pumpkin patch. Was it on the top 5 things that I wanted to do on a Wednesday night? It wasn't, to be honest with you, it wasn't to go to a pumpkin patch. I knew if I go to this pumpkin patch, it's just mainly going to be me taking photos of you. But I also knew that you love it and it brings you joy. And I'm gonna say, okay, so I'm gonna go.
Right.
And in return, and it's not tit for tat, but the next time I ask you to go play golf, you're gonna be a lot more susceptible to say yes.
Susceptible, that's a big word.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
it's one of my big hobbies is big words.
2 weeks ago, we went and played putt-putt because I knew that's something you wanted to do. And I was like, sure, I'll go. And I ended up beating you. So sorry. It was a great day for me. But yeah,
So
I think that's our first myth.
Yeah, we are debunking that. The second myth, we heard this one a lot.
Ooh, tell me.
A lot of people. There's that personality, and you probably know the person that's just a Debbie Downer.
The fear-mongering
It's like the person with babies who go, wait till you have babies. It's like, or blah,
wait
blah,
till you get married and your freedoms are taken from you.
Yeah, and so we heard this one a lot, and it was, the romance dies. Just wait till after the honeymoon. That's when marriage really starts to get bad, or you don't love each other as much.
This makes me so mad because, like, why tell an innocent, like, young couple who's super excited? Why tell them that and like try to like instill fear in them and like crash on their party? I mean, I remember just so many people would say this, like, or people would even comment this, like, oh, they're still in their first year of marriage. No wonder why blank, blank, blank. And it's just like, dang, like, let us be happy. You know what I mean? And I feel like if you marry the right person, again, who's committed to honoring your marriage and your relationship, and you want to work on your relationship continuously, your marriage is still going to flourish. Yes, it'll go through different seasons where it might be more difficult, but I think it still can always flourish depending on how much you guys invest into the relationship.
Yeah, I think there's just people out there that they don't really know what to say, so they just like say something. And then you can hear so many people say this, and they instill fear. So you almost accidentally just project that on your relationship and expect that. But yeah, there's going to be ups and downs, and yeah, not everything's going to feel so, romantical. Romantical.
Romantical.
That's crazy. I said that.
That was a wild thing to say.
Not everything is going to feel romantic. But that's also like the fun part about marriage is the comfort and the mundane with your partner. And for instance, like I would say our marriage is more fun than it's ever been. I think it's way better than it was even in dating. And I know couples that say the same thing about, sex and all the things. And so I think that's definitely a debunk, but I do think there's some truth in it in the sense of, yes, I think a lot of couples, their highs are high and their lows are low in dating. And so like when they're dating, like they are going to these nice restaurants all the time. You're only seeing each other once or 3 times a week. And so you're spending a lot of time away from each other. So you miss each other so much. You're not waking up. So you feel this like excitement, but you're also on this teeter-totter of emotions because could they break up with me? Could they not break up with me? So you've maybe misinterpreted your own feelings by thinking that what you're feeling is romance, but it's actually just adrenaline or a dopamine in the brain because you're not sure where your relationship stands. So you have all these highs and you're going to bed at night. You're not really wondering like what the person thinks. And then you get married and then it's just like you're with that person. You see them.
Like, wait, what?
You see them in their toothpaste in the sink. And then you see them in their PMSing when you're like, I thought you were PMSing last week, but it's this week again. And then, the next week it's issues and now in-law, all the things. And so I think that's something to think about.
Well said, babe. I genuinely do feel like we're really big on talking about finding the joy in the mundane. And I want to make a whole nother podcast about like the toxicity of our generation because I feel like our generation really struggles to find joy in the mundane. We're always looking for the next exciting thing, the next exciting person. And so we've conditioned ourselves for that. And then you get into marriage and when you're in, you're like, oh, this isn't as fun anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. You don't make me happy the way that you did on our wedding night or when we were dating, and then people dip out and dip in and do whatever. Marriage can be so amazing. And I think when you are asking for marriage advice, like ask a couple that might be 20 years, 15 years down the road, 10 years that you like their marriage, because I can gladly tell you my siblings, they've been both married for 9 years and 12 years. They love their marriages. Not to say that they've not had struggles, but because there's a constant pursuit, I think Caleb and I talked about this yesterday. When the marriage gets boring and when people get out of it and they're like, I don't feel in love anymore, is because the couple stopped pursuing each other and prioritizing each other. And we talked about how like, hey, we need to make sure we still do these cute little date nights and we surprise each other and we do romantic things, because it's really easy to do that in dating when all the feels are there, what Caleb was talking about. And then you get in marriage and then you're like, well, I already secured them. And so why do I need to do this? you don't want to lose them into that mentality. And I think
Yeah.
that's what makes people feel like this is boring. A lot of miserable people, the classic quote, misery loves company. They're unhappy in their marriage. And so they see this young and young couple and they're like, man, I remember when I was like that. And they're probably sad because they don't have that anymore. And so they like want you to join in, or they're trying to bring your marriage down before it's even started. So just be very careful what advice you take and what you really store into your heart, because not all of it is true and good advice.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot. Dating is I think a horrible, one of the worst. Like, I wish there was another alternative to figuring out if you can actually succeed in marriage. Because same thing for us. Like when we started dating, you have everyone's so interested in your relationship. Are y'all official? Are you this? Are you that? Are you Instagram official? Then you're Instagram official. Then it's like, when is he going to propose? And then it's like, have you asked your parents yet? And then you're planning the engagement. Then it's like, whoa, the ring. And then you have
Right. The
all
whole wedding
these,
planning.
yeah, you have all these highs, and then all of a sudden, no one checks in on you anymore. And it's kind of a, if your mindset was poor and you didn't work on your relationship, you might have this horrible come down. Um, did you experience that at all? Because I know that on our honeymoon, I think we were 4 or 5 days into it, and we were like kind of ready to go home because we were like, dang,
Mhm.
like we want our home, we want our mundane and our life back. Because
Mhm.
after a while, you're like, it's like it's like if you had a birthday every single day, you
Oh,
would
yeah.
get tired of
Or
it.
when you eat cake every day, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't have cake anymore. Like it sounds so exciting. And
Yeah.
then too much of that is not a good thing.
Yeah, I think more girls need to, especially girls. Because I do see a lot of girls chasing highs, and guys do it too, for sure. But I think girls need to be okay with not having, it sounds cliche, but like not having roses every day, not having this crazy romantic feelings all the time,
Yeah.
because you need to be able to enjoy simplicity in the mundane of life, or you're going to be miserable.
Right. But what you're not saying is don't like obviously have an expectation. Cause I do see guys who bring their girls flowers every single day. Depends on your
Every
relation.
day?
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah.
I don't know one man.
I know for sure one of my friends, her husband brings her flowers at the beginning of the week, every single week.
But that's not every day.
Yeah, maybe not every day, but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like, there are relationships like that.
Sure.
And not to say just don't expect that. I'm not saying set the bar low for yourself, but what we are saying is, yeah, like also be able to find the joy in the mundane, because if you do have kids, things do get more messy and complicated, and like you want to be able to again just enjoy your partner without all the fancy stuff. Who are you calling?
Calling the florist right now.
Yeah, that's right. I hope so. I get what people are saying. Like, your relationship does change. Of course, when you're in the first week of marriage, you're like so in love and you're like, oh my gosh, you're still staring at your ring every day. And you're like, I can't believe we're married. Things do change, but it's just different. Change isn't bad. It's still super exciting. We love marriage. It has gotten better, but it is different. Of course, like your feelings are different, but again, what you said, like, I feel like I love you so much more than I did even when I said I do.
Yeah. I think it's like, this is a good analogy. When I ran my first half marathon, you would have thought I went to war. Like Jeanine like hugged me in a way I've never been hugged. She was so proud of me. And then when I ran the full marathon, same thing. It was like I went to battle, and
He
I
was my
came home,
hero.
and I went on tour and was gone for years. And I came back, and it's like, my man. And now I finished a 16-mile run last week, or a few days ago. And now she's like, good job, babe.
Yeah, he's
there-
like, are you proud of me?
yeah, there's a little less like you get used to it. You get used to little things, and not to say you're not proud of me, but after a certain point, you're like, okay, I've seen this before. Like you go run and you do your thing, and I have to be okay that you're not going to give me the same reaction every time, and that comes from a place of just being secure.
Yeah, no, that's real.
Thank you.
Happy and Healthy with Jeanine and Amapola is sponsored by BetterHelp. So, y'all, we know that Halloween is coming up and it can be a little scary. And maybe some of you guys like the scary things. I personally do not. But what about things that scare us that don't have to do with Halloween, like facing our fears? I know, kind of scary to do, but therapy is a great tool for facing your fears and finding ways to overcome them, because sometimes the scariest thing you can do is not facing your fear in the first place, and it holds you back. if you have ever considered therapy, this is the time. I have personally benefited from therapy many, many times, and I did end up specifically using BetterHelp once I went through a breakup, and it was very beneficial. It's helpful for learning positive coping skills or how to set boundaries. And maybe you just want someone to talk to. It doesn't have to be anything, with a major traumatic experience. Simply, you just want to be the best version of yourself. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It is entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you have to do is just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. So overcome your fears with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/happyhealthy today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/happyhealthy. Number 3, you have to like each other's friends.
Dun, dun.
Dun. Okay, let's not lie. Let's not beat around the bush. Yeah, it would be Oh, hello. It would be super ideal if you liked all their friends and vice versa. Like, obviously, you still want some sort of, again, that commonality. You want to be able to bring your friends around. But sometimes there's just those people.
Sometimes you just don't like them.
You just don't like them.
I don't like your friend, Jay.
You've tried and you're like, it's not hitting for me. It's not working. I'm so sorry.
Sometimes you got that friend and you have to warn your spouse. You're like, hey, I got this friend. I know this might be a little much. They're a good person.
Yeah, you have to go to bat for them.
But when you're dating, that's really hard.
Yeah.
It's hard because it's hard, especially if your girlfriend has a lot of friends. Because as a guy, you're just bound to not like, and I'm not speaking from our experience because for the most part, I don't think you have a girl best friend that I don't like.
Yeah.
I would say I like everybody.
And vice versa for you.
Yeah. But I would say that there's probably, you had I can't like think of a situation, but I think you've definitely maybe have had a distant friend or a friend who's not quite a best friend.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been like, hey, I just don't think this is a good friendship for you,
Yeah. And I do feel like sometimes, maybe this is also a very hard part about marriage is finding like your couple. And sometimes like you'll connect with the girl and he won't connect with the guy, or again, vice versa, where you're like, dang.
It always goes like that.
It always goes like that. Again, you don't have to try to fit a square peg in a round hole. If it's just not working, it's just not working. And sometimes there might be a situation where like, Caleb just goes and hangs out with that friend one-on-one. Because maybe that's more like of a better situation than him coming over. Because
real quick, I feel bad even I would hate for any of our friends to be watching this podcast and
think it's about them.
And yeah, so
we literally don't have a situation like that.
Yeah, I don't think we're talking from.
We literally also looked up some of these myths and we took one of these myths from online. So that's why we are saying this.
Yeah.
But I think again, a lot of people feel like, when they're dating, like, oh, well, my friend doesn't like you, so we can't get married. And it's like, sorry, like. It'd be ideal if they did, but like they're not the one marrying you, so I don't know.
Have you ever told somebody, hey, I think you should break up with your significant other, and all of a sudden like you're at their wedding?
Yeah.
I've seen those reels before.
Trying to think of a specific situation, but yes, I've warned some friends and then they got married anyway. And I was like, okay, you know what? Like I did my part trying to be a good friend.
It's not realistic. And when you get married, your friendships change. And especially if you had a ton of single guy friends or single girlfriends, it's not that you don't like them anymore. It's just when you're married, you have 50% less time.
It's true.
And I have to really narrow down, like, especially when you have kids, like you have to narrow down who's around you. And I've seen some spouses or some married couples where the guy's super extroverted and the girl's super introverted, and the extroverted just wears the introverted out. And they're just like, I can't keep up with the pace you're running at, and you need to dwindle this down. And it's not because I don't like your friends, it's because I only have a certain amount of capacity that I can give, and you're running me into the ground.
Yeah, no, I think that's a little bit of a different situation, but it is still true. Where like maybe the girl is constantly like, I want my girlfriends over. And then your spouse is just drained by like having that many people around, or maybe there's specific people that are draining them. Maybe you can have a balance where it's like, okay, how about you go out and I'll be home. You go out with your girlfriends. Like you'll just have to compromise. Marriage truly is compromise. So we don't think that you have to be best friends with all your partner's friends. Again, it's one of those things where it's like, it's a bonus, but it's not a requirement. But I'd say at least like they're best friends. I hope you still like.
Yeah. If you're single and your friend gets married, don't abandon your married friends either though. Cause I do see that a lot where single people think, oh, you're married now we can't be friends. And there's a lot of married people out there that like get married and they don't hear from anybody anymore.
Yeah, they're lonely.
And that's a bummer.
Yep.
And we've seen that maybe in our life a little bit where we're like, hey, we still love you guys. We still want to spend time with y'all.
Absolutely. But thankfully, like we still do have a ton of single friends that come over. Like our single friends come over the most, which is so fun. So I love that.
Mainly my single guys.
I have my friend.
Some girls.
Yeah, like my friend Lana comes over, but that's different.
So what would you say to a girl specifically who their friend does not like their significant other, like their spouse?
So yeah, this is hard because it is a different topic, but I've always told people too in previous episodes that if a friend comes to you and says like, hey, I'm seeing red flags or maybe like heeds some warning to X, Y, and Z, it's worth listening to. But as long as it's not like a character flaw, they're not causing you to compromise. Like if it's just like a personal preference, like they're just like, I think you deserve better. They need to have an actual like good basis. Like why? If it's just like a petty thing, you don't have to necessarily listen to that.
I've heard some girls say some crazy things like, I feel like you deserve, I don't know. I've seen guys
like physically.
Yeah. Like girls are coming after how my men look. And they're like, you could do better. And it's like, I think that's not super helpful.
Yeah. And it's not fair because ultimately, like, again, they're the one marrying the person. And if they like them, they like them. Like, I know some people say like, oh, physically, yeah, I think you deserve better. It's like, that's not really your business,
Yeah.
But I think if a friend is genuinely coming to you and they're seeing something like, hey, I don't like the way he talks to you, the way he treats, the way he pushes your boundaries. Those are definitely things worth listening to. So I would proceed with caution and just like, ultimately pray that God would show you if this is the right person for you or not.
What if your spouse is like, I can't stand your toxic friend?
Oh, that's tough.
And you're besties with her, but,
Again, it's like one of those things where you just want to listen and at least consider it and say, okay, maybe there's something I'm not seeing here. And you might need to have a conversation with your friend. You might need to pull away a little bit. Or you push back on your spouse and say, no, I think you're wrong. I think you need to maybe get to know her better or ask questions more. Yeah. Investigate on both sides, I think is really important.
Yeah, I think ultimately if it's your husband or your wife, like you definitely need to honor them first and listen to the why behind it. If it's petty, then that's stupid. But if it is like, hey, this person makes me uncomfortable, you need to take your spouse's side probably.
Well, what if you're, okay, now we're kind of going a little bit off topic. What if you're a girl and your husband's coming to you and he's like, your best friend makes me feel uncomfortable because she keeps like rubbing my shoulder or complimenting me and laughing at all my jokes.
This has never happened to us, by the way.
It has absolutely not. But if it did, what would we do?
You'd cut that girl off.
No, I would probably say something. I'd probably be like, hey, I noticed that like you're a little flirty.
Rubbing my shoulders.
No, maybe what if she was like, oh my gosh, Caleb, you're so funny. Wow, Caleb, you look so good.
And then I went up to you and I was like, hey, babe, your friend, I think, likes me.
Yeah. What if you're like, your friend's making me feel uncomfortable?
Then I think that if it's a really good friend, you need to go to her and be like, hey, you're making my husband feel uncomfortable. You're also making me feel uncomfortable because it's making my husband feel uncomfortable. Can you explain why? Because it might just be her personality.
It could, but what if she's like, oh my gosh, you think I would do that? I would never. You accuse me of flirting with your husband? How dare you?
Well, I think if that's her response is to go on the defensive, because if you're in a relationship or friendship with somebody, you should be able to bring things like that up.
Yeah.
And, I remember in high school, I was at a boat. I was on a boat with some friends and I was just hanging out.
Okay.
And my buddy had this girlfriend and I was talking to my buddy and I was like, hey, we were talking about something. I was like, your girlfriend's really pretty. And that's pretty much what I said. But I think I said it in too much of a like, your girlfriend's really pretty. I think it was like more like that.
Oh.
And he got pissed at me. He stopped kind of talking to me for a little while. And I had to hear through other people that I made him feel uncomfortable. When if he would have just came to me and said, hey, you said this thing, this made me feel uncomfortable, I would have been like, bro, I'm so sorry.
Totally.
I didn't mean to do that. Will you forgive me? If you are now going to other people and hurting this person's reputation, I think that's on you.
Yeah, that's not good. If you're anything like me and you do like to cook and you want to cook healthy, it might be important for you that you maintain healthy ingredients in your food. But what about what you're actually cooking on? Is your cookware healthy? This is a swap that I recently did because I didn't realize that most cookware and appliances are made with forever chemicals. Until I was introduced to Our Place, I was able to see that there are better, healthier alternatives out there that do not have forever chemicals. Our Place is a mission-driven and female-founded brand that makes beautiful kitchen products that are healthy and sustainable. And their products are made without PFAS and PTFE, aka Teflon, which is what I was cooking on before. In comparison, most of today's nonstick pans contain PFAS, also known as forever chemicals, which are under increasing global scrutiny for their impact on the environment and our health. Recognizing their impact, the EU plans to prohibit PFAS by 2025. So crazy, you guys. And most cookware brands continue to use these chemicals due to their low cost, which is not what Our Place is trying to do. Not only are they much better for you, they are also beautifully designed and have amazing, gorgeous colors, so they look beautiful and aesthetic in your kitchen. So upgrade to Our Place today and say goodbye to forever chemicals in your kitchen. Go to FromOurPlace.com and enter the code HEALTHY at checkout to receive 10% off site-wide. That's FromOurPlace.com, HEALTHY. Our Place offers a 100-day trial with free shipping and returns. Check this out and you guys will thank me later.
Okay, this next one,
Ooh.
we're about to ruffle some feathers.
Yes.
Because I think some pastors have gotten a bad rep and been taken out of context with certain sermons. I've heard people, even throw out like the porch under the bus with like how they've talked about dating, because some people take it really black and white. I've heard quotes like, marry the godliest person you know and just marry
him.
It doesn't matter if they're attractive. It doesn't matter anything.
If you're compatible.
If they're godly, you can make it work. When there's some truth to that, I think there is a lot of nuance and there is a lot of like things not taken into account with like people's past, people's traumas, people like just like things they have in their life, what they do for work. Do they have hundreds of thousands? You can be a godly person, but I don't think you should. You can. I'm not black and white, but if you had $1 million worth of debt, but you were super godly, I would be a little hesitant. And I think these are important factors.
Right.
So this fourth myth is just marry a godly person.
Yeah, the myth is essentially if you just marry someone godly, your marriage will work out. And unfortunately, I think we've seen that not to be true. I think a lot of people go into marriage just being like, well, they're a Christian and they love God. And so like our marriage is going to work. And I actually did a whole TikTok about this because the reason why this was brought up to me, I did a Q&A and someone asked me, should I marry this guy just because he's godly? And I responded, I was like, girl, no. I 100% believe, yes. Oh, you already tired? You want my coffee? 100% I believe, do marry the godliest guy you know, or marry someone that you absolutely know that they love Jesus. This is going to bless your relationship. This is going to make your life a whole lot easier. Trust me. So I'm not negating the marriage thing. I'm still 100% saying marry someone godly. However, there is so much more that needs to be considered than just, are they a Christian? Just because they're godly doesn't necessarily mean they're right for you. There's a lot of godly people. Caleb.
Gosh, I'm so sorry.
There was a lot of people Caleb could have married. There's a lot of people I could have married just because they were godly. But that doesn't necessarily mean they're the right person for you.
Or God's best.
Or God's best. And like, I think we've seen this where like, I actually just met a girl recently who she was like, man, he was serving at church and he was godly and I thought everything would work out. They got divorced 2 years later and it ended in a pretty tragic way. So I just want to say like, there's many more components that are important. Your values, your family, all the things you consider, like that's why it's really helpful to go through premarital, talk about these things, be very honest with each other and like enjoy each other, at least like want to marry the person. Baby.
I just got hit with a yawn attack.
I know.
I can't keep going.
So like, obviously we believe like you want to enjoy your marriage. I think a lot of people feel like, well, they're a Christian and so we just have to fight for our marriage.
Or they're not attracted.
Or they're not attracted just because they're a Christian, they should marry them. We feel like if you're going to be with this person the rest of your life, A, be attracted to them, B, enjoy them and C, like actually want to marry this person. No one's forcing you to marry
Yeah.
somebody, hopefully.
There's definitely truths on both ends. Like traction does change. If you got hit by a bus tomorrow, I made a covenant to you that I would love you no matter what. And so if I only married you because you were beauty, which there's a lot of, then it would be very difficult to then proceed a marriage if you got hit by, a train. And so I understand that point, but I think there's a very low percentage of people who get hit by trains. So I don't love that analogy based on a small subsection of people within that analogy. So I do think it is important to marry someone you're initially attracted to, but then you have to build a foundation that's stronger than just attraction.
Right.
Let's say the godliest person loves golf with all your heart, soul, with all their heart, soul, and mind. They love golf, but they love the Lord more than anyone else but you're allergic to grass. And so every time they come home, you're just getting you're sneezing
You're
all over the
itchy.
place. It's okay to be like, okay, I'm not going to marry that person because they don't fit I have a certain amount of expectations or things that I've written down of like, I want to marry someone who doesn't ever look at grass. And I
Or-
think that's okay. It's important to not make that list too crazy, but I think it's okay to have a list of like, okay, these are my non-negotiables.
Or unless the person is willing to give up the golf for you, but
True.
I don't know if they're willing to do that.
But why would you want, that's true, but I think if someone really loves something and you make them give it up for you,
Yeah.
maybe they'll resent you later.
Yeah, I think, okay, so ultimately, the point that these pastors are making is like godliness and good character is what's going to sustain your marriage, 100%. When the looks fade, when hard times come, when your body changes after having kids, marriage is absolutely, it does go through rhythms of hard and good and hard and good. So it is important to marry someone godly. Like that, we're not even negating that or dismissing that, because that is what is going to make your marriage last, is them honoring the godly covenant. They're there to lay their lives down for you the way that Jesus laid his life down for the church. Like someone that understands what true marriage looks like biblically is what's going to make your marriage last. But again, we're not here to promote like, yeah, just suffer in your marriage, like just hate the person, just coexist with them, your roommates now. Like we don't want you to wake up to this person and be like, oh, why did I ever do this just because they were godly? Like you want to enjoy the person, like we're saying. And so that's kind of our main point, is like there's many, many godly people out there for you, but that doesn't mean that they're all for you.
Yeah.
So just pick the one that is the best fit for you and your lifestyle, your family, whatever. You guys can have your list of non-negotiables, but still maintain the godliness as the top one.
I see a lot of guys and girls hurt other people because they go on a date with someone they're not attracted to, they don't really like, but they're like, oh, this person's really godly. So they try with they just try. They extend the relationship out for months, and they end up breaking up with the person because they're like, I'm not attracted to you at all. It's like, I've said this before, I think attraction does grow, but at the same time, I think someone else will find this person beautiful, and don't rob someone of that. Of someone going, no, I like your dimples. I like I like the little extra, things to hold on to.
Yeah.
That sounds bad.
No, I think some guys genuinely like that.
Yeah. But they shouldn't be holding on to things. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, not when you're dating. I have heard of situations where there's one specific case I can think of where this girl, she went on the date with this guy multiple times. She's like, I just don't know. I'm not attracted. I'm not attracted. Da, da, da. God literally changed her mind. And all of a sudden she was like, something's different. It clicked. I really like him. I want to be in a relationship. This guy was about her. She was a little like on the fence, like, I don't know. Something clicked. And the more time she spent with him, because she just gave him some chances, it worked. So we're not here to, again, blanket that, because it can grow, but you really want to figure that out before you commit to marriage. Like that's what you figure out in dating. Yeah. And you don't obviously tell the person like, hey, I'm not committing to you because I don't think you're cute. Like that'd be pretty hurtful. But you do need to like be honest still, like, hey, I just,
There is a double standard in Christian world. I see girls coming up, and going, I'm not attracted to my husband, but we made it work. Or they'll say, I didn't find my husband attractive or when we first started dating. And I get the sentiment. I think I do think it's important. But imagine if it was flipped. Imagine if I went on Instagram. I just think it doesn't feel perfect. It doesn't feel great
Yeah.
If you went on Instagram, and were saying you weren't attracted to me at first, that would hurt my feelings. But I do think if I went on Instagram and were like, I didn't find my wife attractive,
Yeah, people would come for you.
oh, it would be bad.
But here's the difference. We're talking about type versus attraction. Some people say they weren't my type, but I still found them attractive.
Mm,
But then there's some people that are genuinely just like, yeah, I wasn't attracted to them and I married them anyway. It's like, oh,
definitely attraction can grow.
yeah.
But it's case by case. I don't think there's a way for us to even.
Yeah, we're kind of getting off topic as we're more talking about godliness versus attraction. Y'all get what we're saying.
Yeah, let's put a T on the godliness part. This is what I think JP and some of the pastors are saying when they're like, marry the godliest person that you know, because if you don't have an idea of what marriage represents, and as a man, as a leader, and the woman as a leader in her marriage as well, if you both don't have an idea of the covenant that you made, when the going gets tough, you're gonna fold.
Mm.
And you need to know that your marriage is spiritual. Your marriage is supernatural. It's binded through the Holy Spirit. You've genuinely made the most important decision other than accepting Jesus into your life. Like your wife and your husband, like that's your ministry. Like the Bible really is very clear. Like if your house isn't in order, don't be going trying to get out there and make a change for the world, because your ministry in your house is the most important thing.
Yeah.
And you can't neglect that. But if I have the mindset, or if I don't have the mindset of my marriage being otherworldly and a bigger representation than just a contract, I don't want to get up to heaven one day and God show me, hey, this is what your marriage would have looked like if you would have really followed me and really trusted me with with your marriage, with your desires, with your dreams. And so having the idea that, man, I really want God's will for me and for my marriage, I just think that that's the best way to look at it.
Yeah.
And it's also in the best way to have the most like fulfilled marriage.
Yes. And I was just going to say, and we'll wrap up on this point, but imagine like being the wife and your husband, like, and I know so many women that go through this. They marry maybe lukewarm men or men that aren't really leaders. They see their men giving all their time and attention to many other things but the household. It makes women so resentful, so hurt, because they're like, I'm supposed to be your priority. And they just feel so on the back burner. They're like, I need to focus on my career, which, yes, that's obviously understandable. But maybe they're so focused on other things and changing the world versus like prioritizing their wife. Women get really hurt by this. And I think that's why a lot of marriages stop working, is when someone's, tapped out, their priorities and their focuses are shifted elsewhere other than their spouse. Like this needs to be, the priority is God first and then your marriage and then everything else. And I think that's what makes it last. And so when pastors are saying marry the godliest person ever, it is so important. Absolutely. That should be 100% the foundation, because I've heard, like, I literally saw this today on TikTok, which I don't know if this statistic is true, but I believe it. 1% of couples get divorced that pray every single night together. And so if you are a couple that is always praying and committed to the Lord, you're going to decrease your divorce statistics and chances by a lot. So God really does bind people together. It's not a contract, it's a covenant. And it's the same thing with us and God. It's a covenant, not a contract.
Amen.
Okay, let's wrap it up on the last one. What was the last one?
Marriage is going to fix all my issues, all my anxiety, all my worry,
insecurities,
my sex,
problems, lust.
all the things.
This is such an important thing to talk about, because I feel like there's a lot of women who go into marriage and they're like, I thought that marrying him would fix my insecurities and my fears and my worries, and I would, he wouldn't have lust issues anymore. I'm not talking about Caleb, I'm just talking about in general. And I'm just sorry to say that's just not true. And I remember hearing JP talk about this. I love JP. We clearly love JP. He always says that marriage problems are not married people problems, they're single people problems, because so many people never fix their single insecurities, things that they're dealing with, their sins, their struggles. They just bring them into marriage, and then it compiles and then it combusts because they're like, I never dealt with it. And so when you're single, it is so important to remember that you need to work on becoming complete and fulfilled and satisfied in the Lord alone, because your spouse will let you down eventually. They are not going to fulfill and satiate every single need. That's really only the Lord's job.
Yeah, okay. So I have an example with that. Before we got married, I had like really bad panic attacks and anxiety issues with night terrors. And I would wake up and my heart would be racing at like 3 a.m. And I thought, okay, when we get married, like maybe that will go away. And it hasn't. And it's actually kind of gotten worse. And we're still something we're still trying to work through and figure out why that keeps happening. So you're so right. And it can't fix all your problems. But what I will say, the beauty part about marriage is you have another person to help work through these issues. And so you don't have to come to within marriage with a perfect resume. It's
Yeah.
not realistic. Like you are going to develop new and old problems within marriage. But if you have the idea that I'm not even going to work on it because this person will solve all my problems, that's where the mistake lies. You need to own what you need to own and say, okay, I have these issues. You're talking to your spouse about it. I'm trying to work through it. But I think you guys got to come together and help work on it because your spouse needs to know what's going on.
Right. And I also think your spouse deserves the best version of you because I think a lot of times people do get complacent in marriage and they're just like, no, like I'm already married. I don't need to work on myself. And if you do have insecurities or anxiety, or maybe there's certain things you're going through, instead of just always like dumping on your spouse, like I think it's still important to maybe have a counselor, have friends that you can also have help you so that if you do end up finding out, wow, I am still really insecure, or, I have my own insecurities. I've told you guys that. Like when I got 30, I was like, wow, my body's changing, my face is changing. And Caleb can't solve those for me per se. He still reminds me how beautiful I am and how he's like, I love you regardless. Like, please know that. But I'm still responsible for fixing my own insecurities and going to the Lord and working with the Lord on those things.
You look 22.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But it is kind of like that classic cliche quote. I'm going to say it. Marriage does not complete you. Your marriage should just complement you. So if you ever are looking for someone to complete you, because like, I feel like that's one of those like Hollywood quotes is like, he completes me. I finally found my twin flame, the true love match, whatever. I just don't think there's a one out there for you, A, and B, nobody should complete you because what happens if they leave? What are you going to do now? That's just a kind of a codependent relationship. And so I would just be very careful just to not have that mindset.
There's some people out there where I'm like, no, y'all were made for each other though.
No, I do believe that. Like, I think Emily and Brandon made for each other, but I don't believe that there's like the one for you. Because again, what if you miss the one? Then should you never get married? Is there always one person out there? What if they marry someone else?
Yeah.
It's a little confusing.
Yes, that's tough.
I think God shows you who's a good fit for you and can show you like who he has for you. But I don't think that there's like one person out there for you.
100%. This was good.
That was good. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and found it beneficial. Maybe these are some things you guys can think about before getting married, or maybe if you are married and you're like, oh crap, what do I do? It's not too late. Don't freak out.
It might be. You might be a lost cause. I don't know.
Hey, don't make them lose hope. Do not lose hope. Everything is redeemable and repairable with the Holy Spirit and with the Lord, and God can fix anything. It takes two surrendered people and submitted people, I would say, to really make the relationship work. So just be praying for your spouse, pray for yourself, and never be afraid to seek out for help.
You want to go fast? Go alone. You want to go far? Go together.
Period.
Exclamation point.
So let us know what you guys think, and let us know what are other marriage myths down below that we might have missed. I'm sure we missed a couple. So we're going to continue this conversation over on our Patreon, so go check that out. The link is down below. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. We still have a limited edition amount of merch left, so go check it out. And I'll see you guys next week for another episode of Happy and Healthy. But until then, stay happy and healthy.
And
bye.
Go drink some pumpkin spice, all right?
Yeah, I already got mine.
All right, see you guys.
Bye, guys.